Hey everybody, we're going to get started. First and foremost, we're going to go around the room. I'd like everybody to introduce themselves. No, I'm just kidding. We won't do that. I'm Steve Horvath. I'm at Telos. I'm the VP of Strategy and Cloud, and we're here to talk a little bit about Xacta Cloud 360. Xacta 360 today. First and foremost, I really like to thank everybody for coming by. This is a big day for us. It's about a year and some change, and coming to get us to this place that we launch our newest version of our leading generation of risk management and compliance software, Xacta. And so I'm going to go through a little bit of history. Telos has been around. We're one of the best kept secrets as far as risk management and compliance is concerned. Telos has been around for over 40 years. In the last 25, we've really focused on risk management and compliance. We've got three main entities inside of Telos. One is cyber operations and defense, and that's where Telos Xacta lives. The other is identity and access management and Telos ID. And then we have a whole entity called secure mobility. And so for the last 25 years, we've been doing on-prem deployments of Xacta for various customers within the U.S. intelligence community, the military intel, the federal civilian, and then some private sector customers. And what we've done is taken the last few years and optimized it for the cloud. And I'm going to let my counterpart, Mr. Rick Tracy, who's the product manager for Xacta, give you a little bit of details about some of the specifics. There is going to be a little bit of multimedia fun today, so there's going to be a few videos we're going to play, so don't be shocked if all of a sudden you start seeing people from the screen speaking at you. But it's going to be a little bit of fun, I hope. So with that, I'll let Rick go ahead and get started.
My name is Rick Tracy. As Steve mentioned, I'm the product manager for Xacta, but I'm also the chief security officer for Telos. And I just want to provide a little bit of context and a little bit of background about Xacta. The objective from the very beginning was to squeeze as much manual effort out of the C&A process as possible, and we've been innovating in that regard since basically 2000. And so you fast forward, and here we are in 2017. We have 5 patents around cyber risk and compliance management, 1 patent specific to continuous monitoring. Before continuous monitoring actually existed, we called it continuous assessment. We have an analyst that regards us as being one of the catalysts for the IT GRC industry. And so we have been, as the previous slide showed, we've been at this for a very long time. Before it was a product, we did it as a service, and we used the smarts from our consulting organization to help us with how the product needed to work. So Xacta is really about operationalizing. From our perspective, we're all about NIST, right? So Xacta operationalizes the NIST RMF, all six steps of the NIST RMF. Today we're here to talk about 360, which is taking the legacy of what we've done for the enterprise and bringing it to the cloud. And so when I say it's optimized for AWS, that means that we leveraged EA4C reference architectures to create content so that you can ingest inheritance information about the infrastructure of AWS. We integrate with 12 or so services associated with AWS for continuous monitoring of the compliant configurations of those services. And we leverage EC2 for scalability. So one of the things that we're often asked is how do you compare with other cloud security companies? And because a lot of people tell their story around the shared responsibility model. And I think that's confusing. When you think in terms of what we do about the 6 steps of the RMF, controls validation is a part. When you think it's really focused on step 4 of the RMF. And we focus on all 6 steps. So we're about the entire process, not just controls validation. So with 360, as I said before, our original foray was with Xacta was to do things on-prem. And so the deployment options that we now support are on-prem, in the cloud, and the ability to manage complex boundaries that span cloud and on-prem. The cloud offerings that we support are private SaaS, single tenant, SaaS, pure SaaS, single tenant, and Amazon machine images. The regions that we support are commercial, east-west, and the AMI that we released as part of this launch, 360 launch, is available in GovCloud. The marketplaces are commercial, and our objective is to support GovCloud Marketplace as soon as it's available via AWS. And most recently, we've been asked about supporting the C2S Marketplace, so we've just begun to take a look at what that would take, and we're looking at that now. And the last thing I'll talk about is just the importance of partners. And so we're creating this ecosystem and a partner program that takes the best of what other companies do to complement what Xacta 360 does. And I think at the end, we're going to talk a little bit about who those launch partners are and what our partner program is moving forward. And that's Steve. I'll get Steve back up here.
Great. Thanks, Rick. So we're going to have a little fun. We've picked 4 main technology focus areas that we're going to showcase today, and each one of those is going to come along with a little video, and we tortured 4 individuals that work for Telos and forced them to sit and articulate kind of the value props of these 4 technology areas. So be gentle as we transition in and out of these videos. And after each video, we've actually asked one of our customers that are currently using Xacta on-prem to talk a little bit about that specific technology and a vignette about how that technology is going to be valuable for them moving forward as they either embrace the cloud or continue to use that on-prem. So first and foremost, adaptive mapping. I'm going to let our video do the talking here about what that is. And Mr. Hugh Barrett is going to introduce. Oh, back one more time.
Transitioning from one IT security standard to another has always been a challenge. It means learning a new way of assessing systems and a new library of IA controls. Mapping controls among many different standards is incredibly difficult. They're impossible to maintain, let alone teach to a security professional. So we have added a capability in Xacta 360 that allows you to engage predefined IA control mappings, which allow you to visually see what other IA controls from other standards you are meeting as a result of your current risk assessment. IA control mapping also alleviates quite a few concerns for our customers. First, it lets them test against one standard and then map to multiple standards. For example, an organization testing against NIST controls can map them to the PCI DSS, HIPAA, or ISO, and then publish the necessary body of evidence for each. Second, it solves the technical issues with transitioning to a new standard. The mapping can maintain the crosswalk itself for both frameworks, so the organization can automate the update process for existing programs and systems. Third, it helps with updating to a new version of your current standard. When NIST releases version 4 of SP 853, there are over 500 new controls to get your head around, and old controls had been modified or broken out. With control mapping, Xacta 360 simplifies and automates the migration of projects based on an early version of the same standard. Fourth, it helps with control inheritance. You can have the ability to inherit controls across standards. Your common control provider can be on one standard, and the receiving system can be assessed against a totally different standard. This allows for a standard agnostic inheritance model.
Hugh's in the back in case you want to meet him or shake his hand. But so the powerful piece of that is all about standards. There's so many of them. There's international standards, you've got ISO standards. Some folks are beholden to both HIPAA and NIST. Some folks have to deal with the PCI standards. We advocate test once. Map those controls. We'll help you with these automated adaptive mappings. And then you can produce a body of evidence that's really meaningful for what that requirement is, whether it's PCI body of evidence, a HIPAA body of evidence, or a NIST body of evidence, or an ISO body of evidence. To talk a little bit about that and how they use Xacta in Department of Energy IN, Mr. Russ Marsh.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to myself a little bit here at the start. Remember being a young lieutenant in the Navy, and I was really excited because we were getting some automation. Somebody in our group got a spreadsheet and a Word document with the security controls all laid out, so all we had to do is go line by line through each one of those rows and figure out what we needed to do. And we were real excited. We're done, wrapped up our first package, and they go, great, we're going to share that system with another agency. And we said, okay, great. We'll sit down. We'll talk to them about what controls, how we implemented them. And we said, great. So what policy structure did you guys use? Oh, we use DITSCAP. Oh, we don't use that. We need you to do DCID 6.3. It's like, well, what do we need to do? Well, everything you just did, we need you to basically redo, but with this stuff and follow this procedures. So then we go fast forward a little bit, and DOD and the IC said, hey, you know what? We really should get kind of on the same page. Why don't we agree to both kind of follow this NIST structure? So out came ICD 503, said everybody's going to migrate. We're going to do CNSS 1253. Great. What do we got to do? Well, all your DCID 6.3 packages, you now need to redo in this new format. And that meant going through everything again. So now, fast forward, yet again, everybody's talking about inheritance, how great that is. So, well, great, we're all on the same structure now, same controls. You go talk to somebody to inherit some controls, and it's like, well, what rev are you on? Oh, we're rev 3. Sorry, we're on rev 4. This isn't going to work. You finally get on the same revision of 1253, and then it's like, well, hey, we're ready to do this. And okay, are you guys using the broken out controls or the old standard? So there's always seems to be something impeding being able to automate everything all the way through, nice, quick, and easy. And so one of the things, if you're a boss out there and you have an ISSM or whoever writes your SSPs and they like writing those documents, they like doing implementation statements, keep them, because it's got to be one of the most boring, tedious jobs I think that's out there. So I am always looking for ways to automate for my folks to be able to make this as quick, efficient, painless as I possibly can, but still be compliant. And as we continue to do more work with other people in the IC or the federal government as part of the DOE, my shop is, we kind of straddle both. We need to work with different folks and their plans, reciprocity, and those kinds of things. So we have actually been moving down the path to enable us to inherit controls, share controls across our national labs. And if we need to share a system, or if the lab builds a system and it needs to go to another customer, we can easily put that now, apparently, put that into, with a few clicks of a button, into their version, into their broken out controls or non-broken out controls, and they'll be able to understand with what they're used to looking at and save my folks a lot of time. Right now, a lot of times, it's almost more of a trust factor. If we're sharing something and you don't have the time to walk through each of those controls, you just kind of go, okay, here's what we got, here's how we did it, and hope that it's similar enough that it's not putting the other person at risk. So with that, unless there's anything else.
Thanks, Russ. You touch on a really important point, that it never seems to be easy. And reciprocity was a great concept, but really putting it into practice has been a challenge for everybody. So the next technology focus area we're going to talk a little bit about is advanced inheritance. So Telos has been doing inheritance within our Xacta product over the course of the last probably 6 years. We really focused on building a robust engine. And for that, I'm going to let Mr. Dave Wagner have his conversation for you via video, if I get it right. One more time. Nope. We can get there. There we go.
With over 900 controls, the NIST 853 Control Catalog provides comprehensive guidance to organizations following the NIST Risk Management Framework. Unfortunately, many have also found it quite daunting to fully implement. To help solve that, we developed an advanced inheritance feature within Xacta 360. This feature greatly reduces the workload of testing and validating controls each time a new system or previously assessed system goes through the RMF process. Advanced inheritance enables organizations to establish their security boundary around provided enterprise services or infrastructure. For example, Then when new systems or reassessments of existing systems are going through the RMF process in Xacta 360, groups of controls are able to be inherited from the service provider projects, either wholly or in a hybrid or shared manner. Xacta 360 also keeps track of the systems both providing and consuming those controls. If risk is introduced, it notifies the responsible system owners to take action. Advanced inheritance can also deliver the implementation guidance for hybrid or shared controls. This helps those system owners get through the implementation phase of the RMF much faster, as they can begin to implement the portion of their control requirements effectively.
Let the music play all the way out. All right. So I'd like to have ask Mr. Richard Johnson of DHS to come up and talk a little bit about common controls and heritable controls. Thanks, Dave.
Cool. So Xacta 360, this is going to be great. I'm telling you, an advanced inheritance is going to be even better. At DHS, we have roughly about 800 major systems. This isn't including all the minors and the EISs, or external information systems. But we have a lot of systems, and each one of these systems provide controls. Almost all systems can provide controls because we're really cloud-centric at this point. So that means hundreds of systems are providing, and then hundreds of systems are then consuming those controls. And this gets extremely complicated, especially since at DHS we're roughly 13 components. And with 13 components, we don't speak to each other like we should. So inheritance gets to be a mess. So what advanced inheritance is going to do for us is fourfold. Number one, the provider is now the gentleman, the person that is going to decide how you're going to inherit the control. In the past, we've actually gone from the consumer's perspective. The consumer reads the control, and they get to decide whether or not it's fully inheritable or hybrid. So at this point, we're going to go from the perspective of the provider. So this is going to cut down on confusion. A lot of mistakes are going to be eliminated because of that. Secondly, they've put in 360 what they're calling the inheritance questionnaire. This is going to be a great help to us. And the questionnaire is going to be used, for example, we have several data centers. You get different services depending on which data center you actually reside. So what's going to happen is we're going to have a question at the department level. Are you in data center X? And if you are, you're going to get controls from several different places. You'll get it from maybe a mainframe, maybe an authentication service. Maybe you'll get it from multiple data centers, depending on where you are in the organization. So this is going to be a great help. The ISSOs will have the ability to actually, know what they're getting when they answer the question properly. We also have what's called the CISO common controls, and this is what the -1s are. The policy statements, AT1, AC1, things like that. The question will automatically be asked, are you part of headquarters? And if you're part of headquarters, you'll get their CISO controls, and you'll get the department controls. If you're part of, say, FEMA, then you'll get the FEMA controls and then headquarters controls also. So it's just going to be great. Thirdly, it's giving us a map. The ISSO is going to get a map showing what controls they're inheriting and which controls they're actually providing. And fourthly, the approval process. This is going to be great too. So instead of the department level deciding that if you're in the data center X, you're going to get all of these controls, you can then, as a consumer, go out to individual systems. Maybe they're small systems. You'll be able to get those controls one-on-one, and then there'll be an approval process. So you ask for the control, the provider either approves or rejects, and then you have that control. So these four things are just going to make it an enormous, I have no idea what the word is, but it's going to be great. And lastly, I'll tell you that the speed to deploy into the Amazon cloud is going to be extremely good for us. The ability to scale is a problem we're having. And I'll let Steve finish that up.
Thanks, Richard.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Yeah, you bring up a great point. So that's a great lead into our next technology focus area, which is all about auto-scaling and cost-saving deployments. So traditionally in an on-prem environment, you've got the resources that are dedicated to you. And even if you attempt to, in a virtualized environment, if you attempt to request more resources through some crazy bureaucratic process, that can take up to 6 months or even a year to all of a sudden get new processes or things like that. So what we've got here is a little video. Again, we're loving the videos lately. And it's going to show you a little bit about what we decided to do to try and help that eventually, if I can figure out how to make the videos work. By the last one, I'll have it.
With the launch of Xacta 360, we've addressed several cost issues by offering a SaaS or cloud-based solution. Over the years, agencies have struggled with serious power, space, and cooling issues. Expanding our deployment options to the cloud helps address these concerns. In addition, budget constraints and the need for new security technologies have forced even the most well-funded organizations to become more cost-conscious. So, as we launch Xacta 360 in the cloud, we've expanded the number of operating systems and database platforms we support to significantly reduce O&M licensing costs. Xacta 360 deployments on AWS will also take advantage of auto-scaling via the AWS Elastic Compute Cloud, or EC2. With thousands of users and thousands of assessments in some environments, auto-scaling will allow organizations deployed on EC2 to scale seamlessly, handling hundreds of concurrent connections. This ensures availability and response as increasing numbers of concurrent users access the system.
So this brings us into our last technology focus area, and then we're going to take questions. We have customers that have thousands, as Lisa on our video mentioned, we have customers that have thousands of concurrent projects and thousands of users. And when all of a sudden people are all logging in, systems can get slow. Again, if you have to wait 6 months for resources to get dedicated via VM, as some of these agencies, especially in the intelligence community. So the ability to just scale elastically is going to make a huge impact on those organizations as they approach using Xacta in the cloud, whether it's C2S or GovCloud or even one of the US East or West regions. The last technology focus area that we talk about is about API integration. So when you adopt cloud, you get your infrastructure. But do you know what your infrastructure is doing and how it's currently configured, and are you kind of validating it on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, on an ongoing basis? We built into Xacta some features that allow us to reach directly into the AWS APIs and get that information back and automatically apply it to your body of evidence. And for that, our VP of Development, Mr. Jeff Schneider, will be on the video for us.
As we begin our journey to the cloud, we recognized our transition had to include a direct interface with the infrastructure or platform to automate risk calculations and continuously validate the compliance of the environment. Xacta 360 includes deep AWS API integration, allowing for interrogation of the customer's account and selection of the resources or services that require initial and ongoing security control validations. Xacta 360 combined with our Xacta Continuum product allows for full stack validation of security controls from the infrastructure all the way to the application layer. Not once, but continuously bringing real visibility to the fight against everything from misconfiguration to compromise and response.
All right, last video, I promise. With that, I'd like Mr. Richard Scher from the 25th Air Force, the Intel side, to get up and give his impression on how that API integration will do its thing for the Air Force.
Thank you, Steve. So I guess the real question is why did Steve invite everybody up here that has a bunch of R's? So I got a Rick, a Russ, a Richard, and a Richard. So I thought I'd be a dick for a little bit just to be different. Then I thought that was probably highly inappropriate. So if you don't mind, I'll just be a Rich for you guys. So let's talk about the API side of things now that I've got your attention and you're back awake again. All right. So the problem that we've always had with the integration of security into anything is it's too time consuming and it takes forever and I don't understand it. Well, then we brought this Xacta tool on board in 2010, and that's going to implement the RMF, and it's going to make everything seamless and simple and easy. The problem is I still have to know how to log into the tool, and I still have to know what my system does and how it operates to fulfill the RMF requirements. All right, so let's take that along. Let's try continuous monitoring. So we were from the first adopters of Continuum as well. Continuum's going to reach out, it's going to upload the scans, it's going to provide feedback into those ongoing SSPs so that we can do that continuous monitoring piece. The problem is I still don't have something that does the RMF for me, right? And the first thing that people are going to say is, now we're going to move to the cloud. I don't own the system, I don't own the capability, I don't own the infrastructure, I don't even know what's going on because Amazon does all that for me, but they're not giving me the RMF. Well, they do have a small set for your platform. But the bigger piece is that once you move to the cloud, once you have the API integration, once you've got Xacta 360 rolling with Continuum, and you don't even need to take it all the way to 360 for some of these capabilities in Continuum to be facilitated, you'll have the insight into what is being provisioned on the fly, both from a capabilities perspective, a server instancing, down to the granularity of how your logging is changing when you throw out a new application or a new software load to your system architecture. You'll also know the spin-ups and teardowns of each one of your systems, the time on station. You'll be able to do adaptive modeling to your logs and to your security correlations so that you can then provide that to your integrated defense or your insider threat monitoring services that you're responsible to the IC for. So what we're going to be doing here in the next few months is we're going to be taking Xacta out of AFJWIX and putting it in C2S Cloud. We're going to be doing that for two major reasons. First is we believe we're going to accelerate the capabilities of the tool by light years. All right, we're operating on an old antiquated AFJWIX infrastructure. We're going to move to the new model that the agency has done, and if it fails, it's all Hugh's fault, and I'll make sure that we get the blame for that. But when it succeeds, I'll also pat him on the back and say thank you very much for all your help. All right, once that's done, then we'll have the Continuum capability and the Xacta capability already built into C2S. That extensibility for analyzing what's going on in the cloud via the APIs is the key critical component to doing continuous monitoring on the fly and for adapting your systems. Right now we have an RDT&E policy that would apply to our DevOps environment, which would account for stand-up and tear-down of new systems capabilities. If I wanted to go throw an SQL server, if I wanted to go throw a Windows server out there, if I wanted to go do an Apache web server, I would have all those capabilities built, but I have no way of adding or subtracting that to my SSP, keeping my AO informed. All right, I've got to protect my AO. Colonel Hayes looks at us every single day and says, we've got to make this faster, more seamless, more attributable, and we have to be able to give assurances to the highest levels at both air staff and the IC that we're doing our job as far as security is concerned without getting in the way of capabilities to the field. All right, that is what this is going to do. Those APIs will be able to reach down into the architecture, to the platform, and to the software and pull those nodal pieces out that you need so that you can update it on the fly. I can't stress enough that as you move your capabilities to the cloud, you set up your AMIs, you get them screened ahead of time, and you work with AWS to plug in these capabilities initially and then keep that ongoing as you do your spiral development, because that way you won't be doing packages every 3 years, you won't be doing updated accreditations, we won't be doing assessments every 3 years as we send people out, because we'll already have the assessment information loaded into the back-end engine, we'll already have your package updated, and you'll stay going on in the cloud into the future. Thank you.
Pleasant future. That's a pleasant future, I'd say. So what is it all about? So we talked about 4 technology focus areas, and we've heard some great customer vignettes, and these customers have been customers of Telos Xacta for over 5 years, over 7 years. They've been with us through some great times and also some challenging times as new things were released and we had to make accommodations to support new versions of NIST or new government regulations. The reality is it's all about time to value. And if you walk away from this presentation and our discussion about our new version of Xacta, Xacta 360, it's about our ability to take that process, that very comprehensive and valuable process that provides incredible due diligence for risk management, the NIST risk management framework, we can help automate up to 50% at least of that process for you. And then keep going with it. Live in a continuous mode. Validate it on the fly all the time and keep that data up to date. That's real risk management, as opposed to waiting every 3 years and finding out that you've been out of compliance for 2 years and 9 months of it. So with that in mind, the last thing I like to do is we got a couple of friends in the audience. I'd like to ask them to come up. There's no product that's a panacea. You need a little help from your friends, right? And with that, I'd like to invite our friend from Tenable, our friend from Evident, our friend from Trend Micro, our friend from Stratus, and our friend from Amazon to come up on stage with me just real briefly, a little show of force. We're committed to work with them to make sure that and Sequoia, we're committed to work with them over the course of the year to make sure that we're ingesting their information to automatically validate your systems that are using them as third-party software on the fly to validate those controls. Historically, you'd never see a company do this. We're not competitors. We're all together bringing about a solution for the customer. And that's what Telos and that's what our team here is all about. So with that, I'd like to thank those guys for coming up, little show of force. We're going to take questions, and then everybody's going to be back at our booth. Feel free to come on back and hang out if you have any questions now that we have roving mics. So.
What is it available on C2S, and what do you say about the licensing carryover?
Bring your own. We will be supporting Bring Your Own License for Xacta. And it's currently available. We have I think we have one revision back presently in C2S. It's currently up and available. We will have an AMI of the most recent version available shortly. But it was released yesterday, so there's going to be a little bit of process to get it up on the C2S cloud as the newest version.
Is there an integration with this in UMass for those who have to work there that have listed that way?
If you wouldn't mind, they're recording. If you wouldn't mind, one more time.
Is there a integration piece for this to work itself through EMAS? So obviously you're automating everything, but those who have to go and do that,
Right, I've
would
heard
have to
there's
be
another
manual.
product out there.
So
Yeah, we've heard there's another product out there. No, so yeah, EMAS, we've for years built a few interfaces into EMAS, and we have one that we just completed with the latest version. If you want to stop on by the booth, we'll give you a lot of details on it. The short answer is yes. Anybody else? Any other questions?
I have one.
Sure.
Why haven't we done a reference architecture,
It's a great question.
right? I mean, there's some serious, in case you haven't figured out, there's some serious security powerhouses here. We should be doing a reference architecture.
It's a great point.
So,
I see something in our future. But we'll all be doing it together as opposed to separately. That's the difference.
no more cylinders of excellence.
That's
please.
right.
Yeah. Cool.
Working together. I happen to have one in my back
Throwing in
pocket.
the beer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Well,
Yeah, then yes.
I can't thank everybody enough for your time and coming and listening and watching our videos. If you have any questions, please come by our booth. We have T-shirts. We have little rockets that you can shoot at each other, which is a lot of fun for us. And if we actually will also have our C2S sponsor will be at our booth. So if you have questions about our specific implementation at C2S on our Intel side, come on by our booth and meet Mr. Nicely. But thanks very much, everybody. Appreciate it.